Welcome to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. Sit back and listen to interviews, discussion about books, and anything else literary. There's always something or someone new on the show. Okay. Good evening, listeners. Welcome to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast, Behind the Books, Honest Voices, Real Stories. I'm Amy Shannon, and each episode brings you heartfelt conversations with the storytellers behind the stories, authors, publishers, and creatives who shape the literary world. And every second Sunday, join me for story time where tales come alive for all ages. Let's turn the page together. Today we have an author with us. Can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Dr. Alyce Clark, A-L-Y-C-E.
And how can people find you if they're looking for your work?
I have an author page on Facebook. It's Alyce Clark, PhD.
Oh, great. And that information will be put in the description of this episode. So tell us about, what is it? The Forgotten Girls, I'm sorry. And how you approached or decided to write this book.
So, long story short, and I always say long story short, military, I guess. A couple coworkers and I, Scott and Glenn, we decided to go to New Jersey looking at the forensic lab so some of our students could do an internship there. Because at the university, we have like people from all over the United States and other countries. So the people that lived up in New Jersey area, I wanted to have like an option for working in the forensic lab as an internship.
Oh,
and yeah. So we ended up going there. And then while we were there, Glenn was like, well, his late wife was going to school and, like college, and there was a murder there, Sigrid Stevenson. So we went to the school and went to Kendall Hall where she was murdered. And then we talked to Scott Napolitano, who used to go to school there as well. And like way after, 1977, but way after the murder. And he was like, so like into it that like he researched a lot. So we sat down and talked with him a little bit. And before that, we ended up going to Ewing Police Department where they handed us the file for Sigrid Stevenson. And it was just pretty neat, you know, getting all that information. And then like we had gone to the state police and we went and looked at the Lindbergh case while we were there. You know, why not?
Yeah, right.
So I was actually able to hold like some of the evidence from the Lindbergh case, especially that ransom note. Obviously, yeah, it was still in its packaging, but it was like the plastic, you could see it. It was just neat, like to be able to hold that, you know, it was so cool.
Yeah.
And then we went and spoke to, you know, while we're there, we went and spoke to the New Jersey State Police Cold Case Unit. And we had asked about the Sigrid Stevenson case, and they were like, well, we heard about it, but it hasn't been turned over to us yet. And the reason being is the detective that was in charge of that from the Ewing Police Department had either retired or got promoted and was no longer on the case. So they didn't have anybody in that position to work the case. So hopefully they have somebody now, and they can just look into, you know, getting some more information on that case.
Yeah, it sounds like that sometimes someone outside of law enforcement have to remind people or tell people about something because, like you said, the detective, you know, he retired, he could have died, he got promoted or whatever, and then the case is still considered his. So,
yeah,
you know, giving them a reminder, and I'm sure that kind of opened some doors.
Oh yeah. It just baffles me. And what's funny is the Sigrid Stevenson case is actually chapter 1, and that was one of the last chapters I wrote.
Oh.
Well, I was hoping to, you know, that there would be some more like things brought out in that case, but there never was.
Would you like to read an excerpt of something?
Sure. One of the cases, so there's 14 cases in this book. And chapter 10 is one of the cases that kind of stuck with me.
Okay.
Debbie Lynn Randall was her name. And like for each chapter, I have a picture of the victim at the beginning of the chapter. And when I saw her, it reminded me of what I looked like when I was a child. Like red hair, freckles, So this
Wow.
one really stuck with me.
Yeah.
So it's chapter 10, and the title is She Was Just a Girl. Debbie Lynn Randall was a freckled girl with a smile that touched everyone she met. It was said that Debbie liked to collect leftover laundry soap from the laundromat and bring it home, perhaps her way of helping her family. Even at a young age, she was already showing nurturing qualities. Growing up, she enjoyed typical girlhood activities, playing with Barbie dolls, spending time with friends, and of course, cheerleading. The Suds and Duds laundromat became her favorite meeting place with friends, where they would play with dolls and enjoy each other's company. Having grown up near the laundromat since her parents did their laundry there, Debbie considered it safe and a familiar place. On the evening of January 13th, 1972, Robert Hooker, Debbie's stepfather, was doing laundry at the laundromat, accompanied by Debbie. A short time later, Robert left the laundromat, confident that Debbie would follow shortly behind. About 30 minutes after he departed, Debbie was seen trailing behind with laundry detergent in her hand. She had every intention of returning home, but beneath the surface of normalcy, an ominous shadow of doom lurked. In an instant, she vanished without a trace, never to return home. Her sudden disappearance sent ripples of concern through the community, shattering the tranquility of that night.
How old was she?
12. 12 years old. And what sticks with me is the medical examiner in this case. She was strangled to death. That's what killed her. But if it wasn't the strangulation, the medical examiner said that she would have bled to death vaginally.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So
So
how long did it take for them to find her after
it
she
wasn't.
disappeared?
It was about 17 days, and this case sticks with me because, like, we have a DNA data bank, CODIS, for
Right.
convicted felons. But this case, to me, if we had a DNA data bank for deceased persons, this case would have been solved in 2 years. The suspect in this case ultimately committed suicide 2 years after this incident, and he was told. So I think if we had a DNA data bank for deceased persons, we would save so much money, especially with genealogy and investigative work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And missing persons, I think, would be found. So why we
Yeah.
don't have one, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I would think that, I mean, I didn't never thought about it before, but it makes total sense because, sometimes they find remains and they're never able to ID them. Um, and, or, not everybody collects their children's DNA in case they end up, missing. Um,
Yeah. And that's one thing I've done here at the university. I have my forensic students and some of my colleagues. We go to Quantum House, which is a place for children where they're going to have multiple surgeries or whatever, but they and their families can stay at this place
hmm
for free while they get like medical treatment. So
Yeah.
I've gone there and I've given them like a kit, not just done their fingerprints, but I give them a kit. So when they cut their child's hair, they could put their hair into a bag and put it in this kit. That way they can get DNA if needed. Same thing, they could, do pictures, update pictures, just, writing this book has gotten me more involved in the community, I think. But I know Quantum House has been very appreciative, and just seeing the kids' faces, I don't know what fingerprinting does to people, but they love it.
I remember when my kids were little, they used to have,
The
certain
Identikid.
place, yeah, and where
Yeah.
you could go and they give you they fingerprint your own kid or whatever and take their picture and things like that. And my kids, they didn't care. They loved it.
Yeah.
But you never know. I mean, I was fortunate I never had to use that, but, there are parents that need to.
Yeah. I mean, we never really thought about it, like, because I'm like 45, right? So
Yeah.
when I was growing up, it wasn't like kids missing a lot. We didn't really think of trafficking as much. But today it's big in trafficking, and I think people have more of a view of what it is now,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and and especially like I live in Florida, so that's one of the biggest trafficking areas.
I can
Especially,
imagine.
yeah, especially if you maybe like if you're um, not a citizen, right? There's
Yeah,
no link to you to the country, which is easier for you to be taken. So,
that's true. And I'm sure that, human trafficking has been going on for a long time, and um, at some points they were just calling whatever crime kidnappings or missing persons or, presumed dead, whatever, victims. But now they're, being more open and letting the public know more about it. So it's like there's things that we, unfortunately, we not understand the concept of it, but we know about it. Even just, plain old citizens like me, it hits home. Even if I don't have any children that are missing, they're all grown adults, but just knowing, that someone is, especially a child, is
mhm,
missing, taken, and then eventually killed, and your hope is to give answers to the family to find that, person. Nobody ever gets closure over it, but at
no,
least they get answers, and we'll know. I would rather, if I was someone in that position, I would rather want to know than not know what happened.
right, me too.
No matter
And
how bad it was, I would need to know.
and in some of these cases, some of these cases are older, and the parents have passed away, and they passed away not knowing, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
and to like I don't know. I was kind of a different investigator. I like to say that I treated my suspects humbly and with respect, and they've never been treated like that before with the police. And I
right.
think I was able to get more per se out of them
Yeah,
than the average detective. And I think one of my biggest role models was Vic Powell, who is now passed away from cancer, and Kevin Gross. Kevin Gross is still active, but they taught me a lot in doing investigations. And I know Vic Powell, he called me a pit bull. Because I can go get them, but I would
yep.
do it like how the pit bulls love to lick and all that other stuff.
Oh yeah.
But
Kill
yeah,
them
he
with
called me a
kindness.
little
But
pit bull.
yeah, I just recently interviewed a true crime writer, Dennis Carson,
Mm,
and he said that, he works with this great team on the West Coast, and that he realized at one point, because he was watching a convicted killer interact with his pregnant girlfriend, and that was that he was, even though he was a criminal and he was a killer, he was still human.
mhm.
And
Yep.
some people forget that. They call them monsters, and if you call them monsters, then you're thinking of, no, because no human in their right mind would do that. But for whatever reason, someone kills, whether it's just because they like it, out of mental illness or whatever, they're still a person who does terrible things, does
Right.
monstrous things, but they are not a monster. They can be killed.
Yeah. If they bleed the same color, they're still human beings. And
Exactly.
there's one case that I worked in when I was in forensics that I'll never, ever, ever forget. Um, but this 16-year-old kid ended up killing both of his parents. Um, his dad was a retired Marine, and his mom worked telecommunication stuff with
Mhm.
the electric company, but she worked from home because it was like on the computer and stuff.
Yeah.
But he, what started all this, I guess, the dad was strict. He was a Marine, and
Yeah.
I think about it because yesterday was the Marine's birthday,
Yeah.
uh, November 10th, and today is Veterans Day, which I'm a veteran as well,
Well,
and
thank you for your
this,
service.
I appreciate it. And this kid. and he's a kid to me, 16-year-old
Yeah.
old kid comes home from school, and his mom's like, why are you home early? And he's like, well, the teacher let us leave. She was like, well, how about I call the teacher, and
Mhm.
find out what's going on. So next thing I know, listen to me. Next thing you know, he ends up taking a knife and ends up stabbing his mother to death.
Oh my God.
And there were so many stab wounds. I think the medical examiner couldn't really count them all. And she lay dead in her own bedroom, and there was blood all over the place. And like her head probably could have been severed as well. There was so many stab wounds. And I'll never forget, there was pennies on the floor covered in blood, like a jar of pennies. And
Wow.
the the next thing he does is he waits for his dad to come home, and his dad's riding a motorcycle, and he comes into the garage, parks his motorcycle,
Right.
and then his son hits him with some pepper spray, and has a bat trying to hit him with a bat, and then the dad, I guess, runs after him. The son takes a knife and ends up cutting him. Dad runs upstairs, locks himself in the bathroom, and he's holding his insides so they don't fall out of his stomach. And then his son, who stabbed him, runs to his bedroom down the hall and changes his clothes, and then gets in the car and then drives to the precinct. And I just happen to be at the precinct. In the precinct, he's like, my dad tried to stab me. And this is weird because he, um, I don't know, but stabbing somebody so many times and the knife slips, you're going to cut yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when he left, his dad, I guess, had opened up the bathroom door and went downstairs because the telephone was downstairs, called 911 and said, my son just tried to kill me and stab me, and I think he killed my wife. And unfortunately, the father had passed away in surgery.
Mm.
And nobody in the family believed that he had done that. And he gave a full confession and everything. It was just, and then me being in forensics, I had to take pictures of everything. There was
Yeah.
knives all over the place, knives all over the car. So part of me believes this was like premeditated, with the knives all over the place. But
Yeah.
he's obviously in prison now. But like, I just couldn't believe, and they were well off too. Like that
Yeah.
family had money. How this kid snapped out of nowhere and killed both of his parents. And that's always stuck with me to this
What
day.
kind of kid was he? I mean, prior to this, was he a troublemaker or?
No, he was a good kid. It might have
No.
been because he said he was gay, and his father or whatever didn't like that. And
No.
you're talking, this was like, I want to say 2015 or 14, something like that, right
Yeah.
before Christmas. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
That can do it. It is crazy, and people have killed for less.
Mhm.
But,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it was sad. It was just a sad case that, always has stuck with me. And I think of these cases and like how I worked my cases when I wrote this book. So I had some of my like forensic, I call it forensic twist, into some of these chapters here. Chapter 13 has to do with my department. One of my good friends, John Smith, we were in the academy together. He was a cold case detective in that one. And chapter 13 has 2 victims. And every chapter I have a picture of the victim. And then when I was in forensics and homicide, and when I came across a deceased individual, I always kind of said a prayer, you know,
Yeah.
over them, help me find, who did this to you, uh, pray for their family and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And after each chapter, I ended each chapter with a Bible verse. So that was still like in my version of keeping my little legacy on, continuing what I do. And it just means a lot to me. So,
I
although,
can see
yeah,
that.
yeah, I like it because it's me. It's my personality in the chapter. So,
Yeah, and something like this, sometimes writers, they try to distance themselves from what they're writing about. But I think what you are doing, and with doing that, you are honoring all the victims. And I and some crime writers, or true crime writers, and they don't mean to, but it kind of puts like a glorification on the perpetrator or the suspect or the accused or whatever. And sometimes the victims are forgotten. And the ones I really respect are where it's about the victim, it's about the crime committed against them, and it's not just the victim who is suffering or suffered. Um, Most of the time, their death is not quick, especially with something like serial killers or something like that, predators. Um, and showing respect for the victims and their families, and even the killer's family, because sometimes they don't know, their mom or dad is mom and dad, and they don't believe when they go to the market that they killed somebody on the way home, or something like that. So I like that when I read these books that they are showing that. And it is unfortunate that sometimes, because people die, or like you said, that one person's parents died and they'll never know what happened.
Hmm.
So it's just, I commend you for putting yourself in the book and also writing this book and everything that you are still doing. So, from me, from our audiences, I want to thank you for everything that you have been doing.
I appreciate that. I do it for the victims.
Yeah,
I'm not worried about getting like recognition. I was always taught at a young detective age, you're
yeah,
here working for the family, for the victim. You don't work for the department. I mean, you do get paid by them, but you're working for that family,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So, and I've always stuck with that. Just like, when I teach at the university, I'm working for those students. I want to give the students the best experience that they can, because I know I always remember my college experience. I know they will too. And to this day, I have students since 2016 that reach out to me and
Well,
say, I did this. This is what we did. Da, 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 da. It's funny. I love it.
that's really great, because some students, they just move on and they don't really take it in, or um I think, and this is my assumption of how you teach, that it's not just about what's written in the textbook.
Correct.
It's real life, and some don't teach that. And like, I don't know how many times I've heard it on TV shows. Well, they don't teach that in the academy, but
Yeah.
but,
The thing, I was gonna say, the thing is like, I have all this experience, right?
yeah,
And this stuff was never learned from a textbook. So I get my students out of their chairs and I teach them. You know what I mean?
yep,
Show them examples. And I love, my favorite thing is to use the dry erase board with my marker. And then I'll talk about like one of the fights I was in on the department, and I kind of scribble on like where I ran to and where the person ran to, and kind of like just showing them, and then them
yeah,
being able to visually see that, they're like, wow. And I was like, all this right here, this lasted 7 minutes, or this lasted 2.5 minutes, and they're like, wow. But I get them out of the classroom too, like especially on my forensic students. You know, crimes don't always are committed inside. So I get
yeah,
them into the woods or onto the parking lot doing some street stuff. But they really love it. And like one of my students today, because it's Veterans Day, she texted and was like, Happy Veterans Day. But she was also like, I'll read it actually. I don't get to see you much this semester, but I just wanted to say that you're a huge inspiration to me, and I'm so thankful to have a professor like you. Thank you for all you do. And I get text messages like this all the time, and like it brings happy tears to my eyes. You know what I mean? It's just,
yeah.
I don't know. I love being able to change people's lives, and I'm a firm believer you're a product of your environment. So whatever environment you choose to be in, you might become that environment.
That's true. I was a victim of domestic violence 20 years ago, and I had to fight to put my husband behind bars, which he did, and then after he got out, he died a few months later. But my sons were little, and they could have grown up and be criminals and blame
Mhm.
it on, their lousy father, or but instead they decided to emulate me and how I took care of them, how I showed them, just by being kind and polite and,
Mhm.
but still sometimes you have to fight for what you want. And that was one of the things that they throw it in my face now too when I have bad days. They're like, Mom, you taught us how to fight, so keep doing it. But yeah, it's, I try to do what I can. I'm switched over to local nonfiction history, and I'm researching people who were they lived and then they died, and then learning their stories. It's not like everything that you do, but I can understand, um, just because someone is gone doesn't mean they need to be forgotten, and especially someone who is a victim. I believe victims die, survivors live, but still, no matter what, a family needs answers, law enforcement needs answers.
Yes.
And one case sometimes always links to other cases. So, great, thank you for everything you do, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart.
And I like that you said that one case links to another case, because my chapter 13, the one that talked about my department,
Yeah.
actually linked to a case. Um, so September 11th, 1980, uh, Kathleen Doyle was killed in her house. That case um, eventually got solved. My friend John, he
Hmm.
solved it, but there was a cold case conference in Norfolk, and a lot of people had gone to that conference from other
Yeah.
states, and they started talking to each other, and then John started talking to somebody, and they were able to link that case was connected to one of their cases. So Dennis Bowman was a suspect eventually, and he ended up killing his adopted daughter and kept her body. And what was very haunting about this case is at the end, he's like on a jail call with his wife,
Right.
and he's like, he always wanted to know where Andrea was. She's in the backyard, buried. She's been there this whole time. I was like, oh my God. Um, yeah. So they did a search warrant, and what happened is he killed her. She had gone to the counselor and said that he's like been molesting her or whatever.
Right.
So the the mom thought she had run away, and obviously she wasn't there. So he ended up putting her in one of those barrels and had her in the barn or whatever. And the mom was like, "I want to move. Let's move." So they moved, and he took the body with him,
Oh my
um,
God.
and then buried her in the backyard, and then put a concrete slab over top of her and a fire barrel. So he was burning trash over her whenever he burned trash. It's very sickening.
That,
And
yeah, and that probably meant something to him in a really
oh yeah,
weird way.
and
That
he
was,
called himself a monster. He said it's like the monster inside me, and he like drew these pictures um, for the detective. It's very disturbing, actually. Um, he talks about like the devil, and he would draw this picture um, of like a stick figure in a way, and this is in the interview room, like a stick figure with like devil horns on it, which is in the book as well. And it says the demon used to be right here in front, all right, and had a little pointed beard and horns and claws, and he drew that picture. Uh, it is very disturbing, very
that
disturbing.
is, sounds like a dark passenger.
Yeah, oh
Sorry.
yeah. Dexter. Dexter, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I know. I actually like that show, but
But yeah, the connection in this case was he was Navy Reserves, so he ended up having to go to Virginia from Michigan to do his 2 weeks Navy. So that's where the connection was, and nobody like forensics wasn't the best thing back in the 1980s, and
right,
we're talking about 1980 itself for the Kathleen Doyle case. So like he was only there for 2 weeks, and that ended up going cold because everybody they interviewed had nothing to do with the case, and it was this
right.
guy that was for 2 weeks, and nobody once thought. Some people thought it was like some Navy person, but nobody thought it would be a reservist. You know what I mean? For only here
Yeah,
for 2.
yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, criminals aren't always smart either, so.
Yeah, I know. And then when you think that they're smart, like some of the serial killers are really smart, like Israel Keys, Ted Bundy or whatever,
Yeah.
but they get ahead of themselves and something happens. And like with Israel Keys, greed got to him. He ended up getting caught. And then
Well,
you know what happened with Ted Bundy. But
yeah, he thought he was something else. He
yeah, he
was.
did.
But I really, I want to thank you for being on the show, and I offer the chance you can always come back and share some more information with us. I really appreciate it. So I'm going to just close out the show. It's the end of another great conversation. Thank you for being on the show, and thank you, audience, for listening. If you wish for you or your book to be on the show, go to amysbookshelfreviews.com/podcast and schedule your pre-recording. Please follow this podcast on Spotify. I'm Amy Shannon. Be safe, be well, and always be kind. Tune in here again next week for another tantalizing discussion. Thank you for listening to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast.